First off, before I get started, I do want to say that I am sick, so if my voice sounds weirder than normal, there's your answer. That's why. Well, did the non-spoiler review, so you can check it out here if you don't want to be spoiled or you haven't seen the movie yet. But spoiler review, so assuming you've come here because you've already seen the movie and you want to hear my thoughts on the spoilers. Because I said I did not like this movie in the non-spoiler review, and boy, let me explain to you why. Alright, I guess I have had more time to think about the movie, and the one scene that I did actually like was the Atrociraptor chase scene. Even though I didn't like the reason for why it happened, and I'll get to that in a sec. The actual scene was fairly well shot, albeit it does kind of point out one of the main problems I've had with this franchise is that the humans are able to somehow outrun these dinosaurs that have been shown to keep up with speeding cars, or that the dinosaurs are extremely clumsy and they trip over everything as almost if they're stepping on a banana peel with each step. That being said, I think the Atrociraptor chase is done fairly well. One thing I did notice is the lack of music in there, which I kind of liked, especially since the music here was very lacking in the movie, especially compared to the first Jurassic World and even Fallen Kingdom. Michael Giacchino just seemed like he was phoning it in, but I talked more about that in the spoiler review. So you've had your warning going into spoilers in 3, 2, 1, go. I got a list here for all the different things that came to my mind, so maybe upon a second viewing once it comes out, I might do a more in-depth, almost kind of like analysis review of the movie when I can show footage for everything, but for now, these are the things that stuck with me. First off, the acting just seemed really underwhelming by a lot of people. The only people I can really say that did well was DeWanda Wise as Kayla. Even though her character wasn't really that good, her character was the best. Still not good. It didn't help that she had some really cringy dialogue, even though she sounded semi-normal sometimes, but then they just had to ruin it with her saying stupid stuff like vibes and other crap like that. So I'm so glad that they ruined something positive in that aspect. But DeWanda Wise did a good job acting. I feel like she was one of the only actors that was actually doing a good job. Same goes to Mamoudou. I know I butchered that like a pig. The name in the picture that you see up on screen. I ain't good with ethnic names, or just names in general. I'm a moron when it comes to that stuff. But his character Ramsey Cole was better, I guess, than other characters. That's the thing. These characters weren't good, but compared to both the character personalities of Owen and Claire and Macy in the original trio, they were the best. So by definition, they stuck out a lot, so I can see why people are calling them good, even though they're not really good, but they're a heck of a lot better than the rest, so by comparison, they look great. But acting wise, both of these actors did a phenomenal job, so I am happy that I can say that at least they did a good job. One thing about Kayla's character is, aside from some cringy dialogue, that also included her acting like the strong, tough woman, which honestly, she seemed like she was just a normal person. I think that's more due to DeWanda Wise's acting than the character writing, when she wasn't trying to act like the big, tough, strong woman. Speaking of the original characters, the OG cast has returned back for this movie. That was a big selling point for a lot of people. It was something that I was aware of because it was obviously in the trailers, but I didn't exactly have high hopes because worst case they were going to be completely butchered compared to how they were in the original series, completely 180 their characters arcs, because that's one thing that usually happens when you have old returning characters come back to a still existing franchise. Can't say thriving because that would imply they were good, or best case they would be just nostalgia grabby and very pandery to what the audience and fans wanted to see. And I guess that's what we got. Actually, that's not even best case. No Way Home showed that you can bring back old actors playing these old characters, and it can be done well. But that's pretty much the only movie that's done so. Despite Multiverse of Madness attempts, it failed miserably. And this movie also failed. not as miserably, because all these characters were just kind of reduced to just very generic versions. There was really no story reason why it had to be Dr. Sattler, or why it had to be Dr. Grant, or why it had to be Ian Malcolm. No one in the story, even their dialogue, isn't necessarily special to their characters. The dialogue said by Dr. Grant could have been said by either a completely new character, or honestly it could have been given by Owen, considering how bland everyone is in this movie. So really there was no story purpose for them being here except, you know, to tickle the old nostalgia balls. I will say that I audibly cringed very hard when Laura Dern said, "slid into my DMs. I wanted to die," and I heard lots of people groan in my theater. Which is funny because pretty much throughout the entire movie, there was not a very much audible reaction to anything going on in this movie, except for my one friend who was laughing at pretty much all the stupid moments, which definitely made the viewing experience a little less painful, because at least I knew she also found it so funny in how stupid some of this stuff was. And other audible responses was from little kids, and even then they were just kind of like, "Whoa, cool," but no other responses from anyone else in the theater. And even seeing people walk out of the theater, I've noticed one thing is when people go to see movies that are bad and they come out of the theater, I think they try to convince themselves that the movie wasn't actually as bad as they thought it was, because they don't want to admit it that they just spent the money. Luckily, I have a pretty cheap theater right next to where I live, so I don't lose a ton of sleep over $5, but I think a lot of people, just when it comes to seeing movie theaters in person, a lot of people are usually in denial and are usually more generous because they don't want to admit that they just wasted their time and money doing so. Going back to the OG cast, Dr. Sattler and Dr. Grant get back together because that's what the fans want to see. I can't even really say anything. It just felt very forced and just very pandery to fans. It was very awkward seeing them interact with each other. The actors didn't seem like they want to be there. And I will say that Laura Dern was not very good in this movie. I mean, very few people were good in this movie when it comes to acting, but she was one that definitely stood out to me. You can tell she's definitely trying, but it's just not working. Bless her heart. Especially compared to the first movie when she's talking to John Hammond as he's eating ice cream in this great conversation about the illusion of having control. And you know she's a great actress, but you see it here and you wouldn't really guess that. But it also doesn't help that she's not really given anything. I think that's what makes it worse, is a lot of these actors and actresses are capable of giving some great performances when given great material, but when they're given such bad material and such a bad script, it's very hard for them to work with that, and you can really sense that. It also doesn't help that they just don't seem interested for a good chunk of them, especially Chris Pratt. I mentioned it in Fallen Kingdom, and it is even more noticeable here. He does not seem like he wants to be in this movie at all. Going from the chemistry of Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler, which again, the only noticeable thing about them was like, oh, it's the old characters we like coming back together. There wasn't really anything between them except from what you remember from the first movie, aka member berries. Another thing that was incredibly not believable was the chemistry between Owen and Claire, which was hilariously not believable considering how awkward their chemistry enforced it was from the previous two movies. At least in the first movie, I didn't think it was so bad, and it ends with them getting together again. But then Fallen Kingdom, it begins with them broken up again, but then they're back together again. So what was kind of the point of that? And I've seen some people defend it saying, well, it's meant to be awkward, but there's a difference between charming awkward and just awkward. When I think of charming awkward between a romance, I'm thinking more like Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy from Into the Spider-Verse. It has kind of that awkward charm / friendship with a hint of romance, but that's about it. And I think it balances it very well. But to say, oh, it's meant to be awkward, so it means that it's less awkward, that doesn't really defend the excuse for the poor writing of all of a sudden they're all lovey-dovey with one another, and you just don't really believe it because it's completely opposite of what the first two movies have shown with these characters. Well, the plot of them involves them protecting Macy, the clone girl from the Fallen Kingdom movie, which we all know she's such a great character in that, especially since she's responsible for all the dinosaurs getting loose. As far as I'm concerned, she's insane. And in this movie, bless her heart, but Isabelle Sermon did a terrible job. If I had to describe her teenage personality, is just angsty teen of, that's her personality. It's her just going, and rolling her eyes. It's hilariously awful. And obviously teenagers can be little shit sometimes. I mean, I was a teenager, and there's a good chunk of you that probably were or are, and I can guarantee whether you want to admit it or not. And I've even seen some people say that, oh, she's meant to be unlikable and horrible. Really? Is she? I don't think she is. I think that's you just trying to defend bad writing. Which, just call it what it is. It's bad writing. Stop trying to defend a bad performance and bad writing. I also like that the plot of this whole movie focuses on two things. You would think the dinosaurs, considering how there's dinosaurs around the entire world interacting with humans, but nope. But that's just reduced to the first couple minutes of the movie, because we have to make time for the plot of Clone Girl and locusts. If you've seen the trailer, you have seen some images of the locusts flying around, so a lot of people knew they were going to be in it, but I don't think a lot of people realized that they would be the main focus of this movie. Not that the fact that dinosaurs have been reintroduced into our world, I repeat, the main focus is about the locusts, because that's what I want to see from a Jurassic World movie. I think that's one of the reasons why the first Jurassic World movie, for all its flaws, does work to a certain degree, is the fact that we get to see the dinosaurs and all the different other animals there interact with tourists and a large population of people, not just an isolated jungle or forest with a handful of people, because that's what we get in here. We get to see a handful of people try to survive being in the jungle/forest from all the dinosaurs, because we haven't seen that before. It's not like that's the thing that's been for all these other movies. Heck, even in the Lost World, at least the Rampage to San Diego, as weird as it looks to see a T-Rex running down Main Street, it's at least cool to see it interacting with the real world. But here we don't see any of that, except for the first couple minutes of the movie and the last minute or two of the movie. So because the plot focuses on the locusts and not the dinosaurs, we get to have Macy get kidnapped, as well as Beta, Blue's stupid baby, which I'm so glad to see in here. And how Macy's mom was always part of the OG trilogy, just like Benjamin Lockwood. Wink, wink. We totally didn't make up these characters just to buy into your nostalgia. And of course, Macy's mom is this super genius, despite Henry Wu being built up to be this super genius and the fact that he's the one who's responsible. But actually, nope. It was actually Macy's mom, who was here from the beginning of the movie. Since the beginning of the OG movie, it's always been her doing all these achievements and discoveries. Not Henry Wu's character, Macy's mom. And now all of a sudden Henry Wu is a completely sympathetic character that wants to fix all his actions now. Talk about a left field character arc out of complete nowhere. Henry Wu is, like I said, all of a sudden he's trying to stop all the damage he's done for no reason by being shown to us from the first, not even the first movie, but even just in the Jurassic World movies. It's been completely different to how he acts. And of course, you could argue that, hey, maybe he realized what he did is wrong, but of course this happens all off screen. So we see him end saying, I'm the one who's creating all these dinosaurs, I'm the most important person to you, to all of a sudden saying, I'm completely humbled, and hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, we need to stop this bad thing that we're causing, Biosyn. And to see a character arc like that come out completely nowhere, at least in Jurassic World, at least I can see why Claire would change that way, because at least we at least got to see her development throughout the first movie. But here it's just all of a sudden, boom, he's a completely different character. I mean, I guess it was nice that he got to redeem himself at the end of it. I don't really know. I'm confused on how it's supposed to be happy, even though he is the one who did design it and comply with that, so yikes. I hear a lot of people say that this movie has a lot of dinosaur action, and yeah, there are a lot of individual scenes with dinosaurs. Each scene doesn't seem to last very long. The pacing of this movie seems way too fast paced that it even skips through the action scenes, and because of that the scenes aren't really as tense because you just try to zoom by through it as fast as you can. I mean, talk about the final battle, well, I'll save that for later, but I think the final battle, this is easily the worst climax of any Jurassic Park film. It might be one of the worst climaxes I've seen in a movie, period. And I'll explain why later. Let's go to Dr. Lewis Dodson. Who cares about this character? These movies are literally scraping at the bottom of the barrel. They get a character that the OG fans of the franchise will be like, it's Dodson! We got Dodson! I mean, really, what did he do in the first movie? He gave instructions to Nedry, gave him a can of shaving cream, and the actor's performance was so weird. I get what he was kind of trying to go for, like a Mark Zuckerberg type CEO where he's very awkward, but the performance is so weird and so, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just that head scratching, to say the least. I mean, yeah, I guess he technically did a good job at acting awkward and painful to watch, because man, he was painful to watch. And his death scene was so on the nose of, remember this from the original movie where he had to grab the Barbasol can and then run to the pipeline, and then of course he gets attacked by Dillos and he drops the Barbasol can, and then we get to see the Dillos eat him, but this time there's multiple Dillos. Do you remember the Dillo eating Nedry from the first movie? There were so many scenes where it was just, remember this scene from the original movie? The whole Giganotosaurus attacking the main group in the observatory tower and around the car was almost identical to the first T-Rex breakout scene. It was very similar, with Ian lighting a torch to distract the big apex predator. But this one, he turns it into a dragon Giga because he throws a flaming bug into the Giga's mouth and then it starts breathing fire. I kid you not. You think I'm making this stuff up, but when a lot of people said that the design for the Giga looked like a monster or a dragon, well, they kind of go full out with that, with the fact that its breath is now extremely flammable. I just rolled my eyes and groaned. That was me through most of this movie. But you may be asking, but Cameron, how did a flaming bug light the Giga's mouth on fire? Why were there flaming bugs? Well, you see, Dodson, Mark Zuckerberg wanted to destroy all the evidence of biosyn, so he lit all the locusts on fire, and they were on fire for probably a good 30 seconds, and then they break out and fly upwards and around the entire facility before they start dying and dropping their flaming corpses down. And so that's why there's a fire in the trailer, and that's why Ian Malcolm had a flaming torch, because he poked the flaming bug and distracted the Giga and fed it a spicy bug. Two things that I thought were kind of funny in my theater's reaction. One was when you see the Dimetrodon sail moving in the water towards the Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler and Macy. And I feel so bad for the one little kid, but I could hear one little kid behind me getting clearly excited because he was saying, it's the Spinosaurus, it's the Spinosaurus, which just broke my heart because I knew this kid wanted to see the Spinosaurus, just like a lot of people that have been fans of this series, that even though Jurassic Park 3 isn't good, we still want to see the Spinosaurus come back, at least in a big action film in live action. Yeah, it's in Camp Cretaceous, but for one, it doesn't even have the same sound effects, and two, it probably is gonna die, which I predict that Big Edie and Little E.T. will kill it in Camp Cretaceous Season 5 because it does not appear in here. And also, they might be in this movie. Yeah, it's a little confusing. The ending shows Rexy coming across 2 other T-Rexes in the Biosyn Valley, which makes you think 2 things. One, are those T-Rexes from Camp Cretaceous? You can't tell because they're kind of far away, and you only see them for a handful of seconds, so really you can't tell for sure. I guess we'll find out in Camp Cretaceous Season 5. And 2, they said that the Giga was the apex predator of this valley, but they have 2 T-Rexes that seem to be working together, and they put Rexy in and saying, oh, they want to put another apex predator in here. So did Dodgson just want to put the T-Rex in there with the Giga just to have it be killed? I'm kind of confused on that. That doesn't really make sense when they establish that, oh yeah, there's actually already T-Rexes in here. But hey, that's too much to ask of the writers. But yeah, I felt so bad for the kid. I'm like, 1, the sail wasn't obviously big enough to be the Spinosaurus, and 2, I knew deep down after when we were about halfway through the movie at this point, I'm thinking putting the Spinosaurus in this movie would be too cool for this movie. That would be too entertaining, and we can't have that. This movie was very boring. I think that's the worst part, and it didn't help that a lot of the action scenes were extremely poorly lit. The final battle was freaking atrocious when it comes to being able to see things. I gave Godzilla 2014 a hard time about having poor lighting in terms of its final battle, but man, this movie puts its final battle to shame with how much you can't see. One last thing before I talk about the final battle and the editing and lighting and cinematography of this movie. There's a scene where, of course, they had to luckily, I'm so glad that they did not bring back the military dinosaurs as much as they did. I wish they just didn't bring it up, period. But they brought it back, and it was, I kid you not, the moment when the evil lady said, the Atrociraptors are bred to hunt whoever this dot points on them, I literally audibly said, oh, you gotta be shitting me. And my friend thought it was funny because he knew I did not like that, and I was hoping that it wasn't going to be in this movie, and that's why I didn't like, that's part of the reason why I can't even like fully enjoy the Atrociraptor scene, because of how stupid of a reason of why it happens. But at least it wasn't as prevalent as it was in the first 2 movies. Now we get on to the final battle, which is really, really short. The final battle is honestly maybe like 2 minutes at most, and the thing is you can't really see anything. The way the cinematography is shot, there's a flashing light moving around, so you can't even see the T-Rex and Giga fight properly, and it's so dark and everything's so poorly lit that unless the spotlight is directly on them, you can't see what these 2 dinosaurs are doing to each other. And it's ironic that Colin Trevorrow said that this dinosaur is meant to be the Joker of the series, when this is probably the apex predator or antagonist dinosaur of the series with the least amount of screen presence, which is kind of a feat considering you gotta beat the Indoraptor in order to be considered less of a screen presence. The fight between that and Rexy felt like there was no build up at all, and which is funny because the prologue was originally going to set up that they have this legendary rivalry, but then they interact one time in the forest and the Giga bites Rexy on the nose, and then all of a sudden they're together in the main center after all the dinosaurs have been brought in to protect them from the fire, which is another thing. The final battle takes place in the center area where all the dinosaurs are being drawn, but we only see a handful of dinosaurs, and from the entire Biosyn facility we only see a Dreadnoughtus, the T-Rex, Giganotosaurus, and Therizinosaurus. But so I don't know where all the other dinosaurs are because they had to be drawn there because of the chips they have in them. But the fight between the 2 was so lame and not built up at all, and it goes to show that Jurassic World had an awesome climax. I will defend Jurassic World even just for that aspect. At least Jurassic World went all out with its spectacle and took advantage of everything. They were like, yeah, let's do something that we haven't done before. Let's have the T-Rex teaming up with another dinosaur. Well, of course, this movie just repeats the same thing again, but it doesn't really make any sense because the Therizinosaurus and T-Rex team up so the T-Rex can push the Giganotosaurus into the Therizinosaurus's claws and impale itself. And the fight is over and you're like, wait, that was it? Like, we saw maybe 10 seconds of the actual fight between the T-Rex and the Giga, and then we see maybe another 20 seconds of the Therizinosaurus and Giga fighting, and then it's over. And then the T-Rex wakes up and pushes the Giga into the claws and they roar, and that's it. That's your big epic finale of your conclusion. That's what you decide to go on out. Even my friends who enjoyed the movie, at least when they came out, they literally were like, that's it. That's your big final battle to end these 6 films, the allegedly always planned culmination of this franchise. That's what you decide to go out on. At least with Endgame, they should have ended there. Would have been like, now that was a final battle to go out on. That was like a big climax. Even if it was at the expense of several characters, at least it went all in with the spectacle. But not even here, you can't even go all in with the spectacle. The cinematography was all over the place for the final battle. The editing was very choppy. It also didn't help that the lighting was, like I mentioned, so piss poor and dark that you can't see anything. And we've been shown that you can't have big final battles at night. The first Jurassic World is an example of this. Godzilla vs. Kong is an example of this. You can have final battles at night to hide your CGI. It can be done, but they don't do it here. They make it too dark. Darker than Godzilla 2014, which if you've seen it before they fixed it, you know how bad that is. It's kind of incredible. It's like they were trying to make it as lame as possible. I guarantee fan fiction writers could come up with a better final battle for this series to go all out on. Really? That's what you go out on? That you already repeat the same idea of the T-Rex can't beat the bigger dinosaur, so it needs help from another dinosaur. Like, we've already seen the T-Rex team up idea done before. It was cool in Jurassic World, but we've already seen it, and you just repeat it and pretend like, oh yeah, we're not repeating the same thing. It's different because it's a herbivore now. It's the same thing. It's still the T-Rex teaming up, which, yeah, I get. Here's another thing. I get that Rexy is a lot older in this movie, but she held her own against the Indominus even before Blue came in to distract the Indominus. But she literally gets maybe one bite on the Giga's nose before getting taken out by the Giga. So I guess you can maybe argue age, but honestly, I think it's just the movies having it out for Rexy and emasculating this dinosaur as much as possible. And I'm not even a huge T-Rex fan. Like, I like the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3. At least it was something new. But when you build up the T-Rex as being this big badass dinosaur and you refuse to kill it because you know how much it'll anger the fans, so you do the next biggest thing, the next worst thing, which is make it as weak as and incapable of fighting other large carnivores as possible. At least in Jurassic World, the Indominus is the super hybrid. So yeah, the T-Rex wasn't gonna win, but she still held her own pretty well against it. And even once Blue was able to distract the Indominus, Rexy's like, alright, that's it. And was able to toss the Indominus around like a rag doll. But here, all Rexy gets to do is bite the nose, I got your nose, and push into sharp object. That's all that you could see very clearly. So it was very disappointing because at least it could have gone all in with the spectacle, but it couldn't even done that right. I think that's why I think this movie is worse than Fallen Kingdom. Is Fallen Kingdom, at least you can see the final battle. At least I can name a couple cool, really standout shots, or I can at least name one scene that was really good and actually intense. But nope, can't really do that with this movie. This movie is just a bag of squandered and wasted potential. The interactions with all the old and new characters is not given any thought or any kind of time to develop. It's just, oh, you train raptors? That's cool. So they just like take your orders. Oh, my dog humped me so much that I got a callus on my ankle. Isn't that funny, folks? A dog humping Ian Malcolm. And this movie also didn't have a lot of gore either. At least Fallen Kingdom had a lot of dino deaths and it was pretty violent, but here it feels very kiddie. I think there's maybe only like maybe 6 deaths in that you see. You see one guy get eaten by a baby Baryonyx and baby Carno and Lystrosaurus. Yeah, it's as stupid as it sounds. Another guy gets eaten by an Allosaurus. Another guy gets eaten by the same Allosaurus. Some people get eaten by the Atrociraptor, and Dodson gets eaten by the Dilophosaurus. But that's about it. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of deaths, which you think would have been a great opportunity because you literally have dinosaurs walking around with people and interacting with them. But nope, we can't have an idea like that. And the funny thing is that the premise of the movie, if you read the description of it, describes it that it's going to be this big epic movie where humans and dinosaurs are constantly interacting with each other to see which will be the apex predator and dominant species of the planet. Nope, that's not what the movie's about. The movie's about stupid Locust and the stupid clones, because we can't have something cool like that. This movie should have been a Planet of the Apes type movie where you get to see dinosaurs interacting with people and seeing how they're becoming more and more common, I guess, and more involved in our daily lives and how we're dealing with that. But it's gotten reduced to, like I said, only a couple minutes total, which is really annoying because that's what Fallen Kingdom promised at the end of the movie. That's what this movie promised in the trailers. But nope, they couldn't do that. That's too cool. That's too much fun. That wouldn't allow for as much nostalgia baitiness, enough nostalgia ball tickling, fan pleasing, mindless pandering as what we got instead, which I'm so glad. It's frustrating to see that a movie like this, and I quite literally mean this, has a whole world as its oyster to take advantage of, and it couldn't even do that right. It couldn't do the big dumb monster action scenes right. At least if it did that right, I wouldn't hate this movie as much. But to see this movie squander a very easy premise that you almost have to mess up if you're trying to, just really shows to me that this series is uninspired and out of ideas. I do not see why people are saying this movie's inspired, creative. Well, what's inspired? Yeah, it's got some new dinosaurs in it. It's always cool to see new dinosaurs, but they're doing the same things that we've always seen. The Pyroraptor, yeah, it's cool. It swims around in the water for a little bit and then it just chases them like a normal raptor. The Therizinosaurus, that's maybe the only new action scene that we get to see from a dinosaur. That's the problem with series like this, Aliens and Predator. These franchises can really only be done once. There's not really that much you can do. You can only really do people getting chased by dinosaurs in the jungle once before it starts feeling repetitive. It was already repetitive with Lost World. It's never been good since. That's why I think I still stand by Jurassic World, and I think it's as good as it is because it is a little bit different. Yeah, it does have that aspect of it, but we also get to see dinosaurs interacting with the public, which is what this movie should have been. It's what it promised, but you know, they pulled the old bait and switch. I guess bait and switch isn't just limited to tricking people into seeing more diverse of superheroes now, or Star Wars characters. Once it comes out on DVD, I'll probably go more into depth and stuff and maybe do a scripted video on it. But what a waste of a simple idea, and you're so stupid that you can't even do that right. Again, I think they had to be trying to make this a bad movie. When I say there seems to be no effort on any part, you can't mess up a premise this simple, which I'm genuinely shocked by Colin Trevorrow of all people. I think that, of all people, he would be a guy to really capitalize on this idea. Be like, yeah, give the fans what they want. Give them dinosaurs, roar, show them interacting with people. Like the Battle of Big Rock. Honestly, this movie should have been almost like a documentary style type movie where we get to see like different segments of humans interacting with dinosaurs. We get to see maybe like the Battle of Big Rock or Rexy attacking the theater. Just there's so much this movie could have been. And these aren't even like super complex, crazy ideas. Just show people interacting with dinosaurs. It doesn't always have to be them running and hiding from them, but just someone camping and waking up and be like, oh, it's a herd of ankylosaurs, or oh, we get to see other animals interact. Which, speaking of, the fact that this movie plays off that the fact that these massive invasive species are now just allowed to be roaming around the earth and treating it as a good thing is incredibly hilarious. And anyone who has a fraction of idea of the amount of ecological damage they would have on both the environment and the species that live there, it's really, really annoying and really cringy. And some people might say, "Whoa, it's a dumb monster movie. You don't have to think about it too hard." Yeah, the first movie was more than a big dumb monster action scene. The first one actually had some thought written into the script and the story and the actors and the characters and everything. But everything else has never put any kind of that effort because they know that dinosaurs can sell tickets. And, seeing how people are reacting to this one, be like, this movie's actually really good. The characters are really good. It's because you're blinded by your nostalgia glasses. That's why. I don't know what to say. This is easily the worst. Fallen Kingdom is still terrible, but this is a whole different kind of bad, and just as much rage-inducing. I guess credit's due. It doesn't have as much. The stupid stuff in here doesn't make me as angry as it does in Fallen Kingdom, but the fact that this movie absolutely squandered a cool idea that they have been building and promising, and yet once again does not promise this to its audience is annoying, to say the least. To see that Hollywood's just, we can give you these cool ideas, but to tease them, but you're not actually going to get them. The problem is that the people at Universal Studios and the writers and directors of these movies were so preoccupied if they could, they didn't stop to think if they should make these movies. This is a franchise that, like many others, we just need to let it go extinct. Well, that's all. You know the drill. If you've been on YouTube, you can spank the like and subscribe button if you want. Tell me what you liked about the movie, what you didn't like. Stay safe out there, everyone, and have a good day. Bye-bye.